Hashtag only one ship? They unleashed hell, humans responded with, finally, a reason to get really nasty, hashtag part 1. First contact and devastation. Admiral Krell slouched in his command chair, mandibles clicking with boredom as his ship's sensors swept the unremarkable blue planet. His aide, Lieutenant Vazek, approached with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. Admiral, we've detected primitive electromagnetic communications from the third planet. Sentient life, sir. Krell snorted, his gill flaps pulsating with amusement. Another backwater mudball with apes playing with radio waves? How quaint. He waved a clawed appendage dismissively. Add it to the catalog. Designation? Earth, sir. The natives call themselves humans. Humans, Krell rolled the word around his mouth like something distasteful. Any defensive capabilities worth noting? Vazek checked his data pad. Rudimentary nuclear weapons, a handful of orbital satellites, and... oh, how adorable. They've managed to put a few primitive warships in their oceans. The bridge erupted in laughter. Krell rose from his chair, stretching his impressive 9-foot frame. Well, we could use a diversion. The fleet needs target practice before the Andromeda campaign. One ship should suffice. Just one, sir? Vazek questioned, glancing at the tactical display showing Earth's 7 billion inhabitants. Did I stutter, Lieutenant? Their technology is barely past combustion engines. What could possibly go wrong? Commander Tara Blackwood stared in horror at the tactical display as New York disappeared in a flash of light. Beijing followed 30 seconds later. Then London. Moscow. Tokyo. Status report, she barked, gripping the command rail of the USS Phoenix until her knuckles turned white. Lieutenant Rivera's voice cracked. Sir, we're tracking 57 orbital strikes. Every major city. They're just gone. And our response? The Security Council managed to launch our nuclear arsenal before Washington was hit. No effect. The alien vessel's shields didn't even flicker. Blackwood closed her eyes briefly. 6 hours since the massive ship appeared in Earth orbit. 6 hours was all it took to reduce human civilization to ashes. We're the last military vessel still operational, Rivera continued. The rest of the fleet was destroyed in port. Then we're humanity's last shot, Blackwood said, her voice steel. Prepare the experimental drive. We're going to ram those smug bastards. Admiral Krell yawned as another pathetic human missile disintegrated against his ship's shields. Sir, Vazek reported, one vessel approaching at high velocity. Different engine signature than the others. Finally, something interesting. On screen. A sleek warship accelerated toward them, its hull gleaming in the sun's light. Unlike the other human vessels, this one maneuvered with precision. Sir, they're on a collision course. Krell laughed. Brave, but futile. Target their engines. The Zoraxian beam sliced through the Phoenix's aft section. The human ship spun out of control, debris scattering across space before it exploded in a spectacular fireball. Well, that's that, Krell said, already bored again. Catalog any useful resources and let's move on. Hardly worth the fuel we spent getting here. As his ship turned away from the burning Earth, Krell dictated his official log entry, primitive species neutralized with minimal effort. One ship was all it took. Not even worth remembering their name. How tragically wrong he would prove to be, hashtag only one ship. They unleashed hell, humans responded with, finally, a reason to get really nasty, hashtag part 2, the counterpunch, supply vessel Craxus, 7, respond immediately. The communications officer's voice betrayed rising panic as he repeated the hail for the 8th time. No response came through the vast emptiness of space. Admiral Krell stomped onto the bridge, his sleep cycle rudely interrupted. What is the meaning of this commotion? Sir, that's the third supply ship to go missing this cycle. All in the same sector near that human planet we cleansed 2 lunar rotations ago. Krell dismissed the concern with a wave. Space debris, asteroid collisions, equipment failure. The universe is full of hazards for incompetent captains. Fleet Captain Dorn, a battle-scarred veteran who had survived 3 galactic campaigns, stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, this pattern is concerning. Concerning? What could possibly concern us about a smoldering rock of primitive apes? Dorn's expression remained grave. I've studied their historical archives we collected before the bombardment. These humans have an unusual trait. When faced with overwhelming odds, they don't surrender. They adapt. They improvise. Krell laughed so hard his secondary breathing tubes flared. Captain Dorn, I personally watched their last warship explode. Their civilization is ash. Their species is functionally extinct. Sir, I recommend we send a scout patrol to verify. Denied. I won't waste resources chasing phantoms. This discussion is over. 50 million miles from the Zoraxian command ship, the USS Phoenix drifted silently in the shadow of a small moon. Its hull, once sleek navy blue, now featured patches of scavenged Zoraxian metal that Captain Blackwood's engineers had recovered from debris fields. Inside the ship's makeshift lab, Dr. Marcus Reed hunched over a dissected alien weapon, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. The power core uses quantum entanglement principles we've only theorized about, he muttered as Blackwood entered. But I think we've cracked it. How soon until we can replicate it? Blackwood asked, her voice hoarse. The radiation burns on her face had healed, leaving a web of scars that somehow made her more intimidating. Reed grinned, a wild look in his eyes. That's just it, Commander. We're not just replicating it. We're improving it. Their tech is advanced, but their implementation is wasteful. Inefficient. Commander Riley burst into the lab. Captain. The Zoraxian supply ship just took our bait. Clean capture, no distress signal transmitted. Blackwood's scarred face broke into a predatory smile. Perfect. Now we have their NAV charts and communication protocols. How many ships can we outfit with the new weapons? 5 now, maybe 12 by next week. The civilian engineers are working miracles with the salvaged tech. Good. Begin Phase 2. Blackwood turned to the star map showing Zoraxian patrol routes. They think 1 ship was enough to break humanity. Let's show them how wrong they were. On the Zoraxian flagship, a junior sensor officer approached Admiral Krell with visible trepidation. "Yes, sir, we're detecting unusual energy signatures near the human planet. Similar to our warp drives, but different somehow." "Impossible." Krell snapped. "Check your equipment." "I triple verified, sir. Something's out there. Something using technology very much like our own." Krell's mandibles clicked nervously. For the first time since the human encounter, doubt crept into his mind. Only 1 ship? They unleashed hell, humans responded with, finally, a reason to get really nasty. Part 3, the unveiling 6 standard months after the curious disappearance of the supply ships, Admiral Krell's morning ritual was interrupted by frantic pounding on his chamber door. "Enter," he growled, irritation evident in the rapid clicking of his mandibles. Lieutenant Vazek burst in, his normally blue-gray skin flushed almost purple with panic. "Sir. Outpost Graxus has gone silent." And before losing contact, they transmitted this. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a Zoraxian security feed. A sleek vessel, clearly of Zoraxian design but with peculiar modifications, hung in space near the outpost. Then, impossibly, it seemed to shimmer before vanishing altogether. "What trickery is this?" Krell demanded, rising to his full height. "Unknown, sir. But that's not all. 7 outposts have ceased communications in the past 30 hours. We've dispatched 3 investigation teams. Krell's eyes narrowed. And? They've also gone silent, sir. The Admiral slammed his fist on the console, cracking its surface. Impossible. No species in this quadrant possesses technology capable of challenging us. Unless. His voice trailed off as an uncomfortable thought took root. Sir? Vazik prompted. Those primitive humans. Could they possibly? No. Preposterous. But even as he dismissed the idea, doubt gnawed at him. 3 hours later, alarms blared across the Zoraxian flagship. Admiral Krell rushed to the bridge, shoving junior officers aside. Report, he bellowed. Unidentified vessel approaching, sir. It appeared out of nowhere. On screen. The view screen activated to reveal a ship that made Krell's blood run cold. It was the Phoenix, the same human warship he had personally watched disintegrate. Except now, it was barely recognizable. Zoraxian technology had been grafted onto its hull, but modified in ways that made no sense to Krell's eyes. A communication request flashed on the console. Sir, they're broadcasting on all Zoraxian frequencies simultaneously. How could they possibly know our? Put it through, Krell ordered, his voice suddenly hoarse. The screen filled with the face of a human female, her skin marked with radiation scars, her eyes burning with a cold fury that transcended species barriers. Admiral Krell, she said, her voice unnervingly calm. Commander Tara Blackwood of Earth. Remember us? The primitive apes you tried to exterminate? You should have finished the job. Krell's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. How are you alive? How do you know my name? Blackwood's scarred face broke into a smile that contained no warmth. We learned a lot from your supply ships. Your database security is laughably weak. But then again, why bother with strong encryption when you believe no one can challenge you? One ship cannot hope to stand against the Zoraxian Empire, Krell declared, attempting to regain his composure. Blackwood laughed. Oh, we have more than one ship now. As if on cue, the sensor officer cried out in alarm. Sir! Multiple vessels decloaking throughout the system. Dozens. No, hundreds of them. Across Zoraxian space, commanders watched in horror as human vessels materialized in their secure zones. Ships cobbled together from salvaged Zoraxian technology, Earth materials, and innovations no Zoraxian engineer had ever conceived. On the view screen, Blackwood's expression hardened. You showed us what your kind does to those you consider inferior. Only one ship to bring down an empire is now will show you what humans do when provoked. And fair warning, Admiral, we're quick learners. #only one ship? They unleashed hell, humans responded with, finally, a reason to get really nasty, #Part 4, reckoning the next 3 weeks redefined warfare in the Zoraxian Empire. The humans didn't fight like any species Krell had encountered in his 2 centuries of military service. They didn't engage in traditional formation battles or follow established combat protocols. They appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before proper countermeasures could be deployed. How are they bypassing our shield frequencies? Krell roared, watching another battlecruiser explode on the tactical display. How do they anticipate our every move? Fleet Captain Dorn, now vindicated in his earlier warnings, spoke solemnly. They're not just using our technology, sir. They're improving it. Their ships are smaller, faster, more efficient. The captured data cores suggest they've compressed our power systems to half their original size while doubling output. Impossible. Our engineers have refined those systems over millennia. And yet, Dorn replied quietly, these humans did it in months with scraps and salvage. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Human vessels struck military installations with surgical precision while deliberately avoiding civilian targets. They transmitted messages in perfect Zoraxian dialect to outer colonies, revealing atrocities the Imperial Command had committed against other species. Revolts erupted on 7 subject worlds. The glorious Zoraxian Empire, unchallenged for 12 generations, began crumbling from within. When the Phoenix materialized directly inside the Imperial flagship's hangar bay, bypassing every defense system, Krell knew the end had come. He dismissed his guards. This was between him and the scarred human commander. Blackwood strode onto the bridge alone, wearing a modified Zoraxian combat suit that hummed with energy. Her weapon remained holstered, she didn't need it. "You could have ignored us," she said conversationally, circling Krell like a predator. "There are thousands of inhabited worlds in this galaxy. But you had to prove your superiority by destroying ours. You were nothing." Krell spat. "Primitive creatures barely out of your atmospheric cradle. And that justified genocide?" Blackwood's voice remained terrifyingly calm. 7 billion lives extinguished because we weren't advanced enough to merit consideration? Tell me, Admiral, how advanced do you feel right now? Krell lunged with surprising speed, his natural claws extended for a killing blow. Blackwood's suit flared, and Krell found himself frozen in mid-air, held by a containment field of his own empire's design, but perfected by human ingenuity. "The difference between us," Blackwood said, approaching the immobilized Admiral, "isn't technology or strength. It's imagination. Creativity. Adaptability. You had 10,000 years to innovate, but you stagnated. We had 6 months and the burning desire to survive." 3 days later, the Zoraxian High Council surrendered unconditionally to the human fleet. Surviving colonies from Earth established a new government that guaranteed rights for all sentient species. The shattered Zoraxian Empire became a cautionary tale, its remaining territories confined to their homeworld. In the decades that followed, as humanity helped rebuild the galaxy they had never known existed until tragedy struck, a saying spread among spacefaring civilizations: respect all species equally, no matter their development stage. Offer friendship to humans first. And remember the Zoraxian mistake: the species that needed not the species you provoke. Ever.